Hello, hello. Welcome to the 5Talents podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. My name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5Talents podcast. We are super excited today to have such an amazing guest, Mrs. Maureen Miles. Maureen, thank you very much for taking a few minutes here.
No worries, Abel. Thanks for having me.
I'm humbled and appreciative. Like I said, my wife was asking me maybe about a month after I started recording shows. She goes, "Are you going to have any, women on your podcast, or is it just going to be a bunch of dudes?" And I go, "Babe, I'm absolutely want to get some women on the show. It's just so hard to find some really, highly experienced ones." And I guess that's, that comes with any kind of profession. But anyways, before we kind of jump in, let me introduce, for those that don't know Maureen. She has an amazing background. I'm going to let her kind of give her story, but she's a real estate expert. She's a speaker. She's an entrepreneur. She has 25 years of real estate experience, and she founded and is the acting managing partner of 4M Capital. It's a fast-growing multifamily private equity investment firm. In the last 5.5 years, check this out, Maureen has completed $250 million in transactions. She's raised over $75 million in private equity, and she's purchased over 3,000 multifamily units. So to say she is an expert in this arena is probably an understatement. Maureen, again, thank you for joining.
Sure. No, happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Tell us, first, please elaborate. So that's probably a ton of cycles in a very short intro. You've had some amazing success. Tell us a little bit about, yourself and what you do.
Sure. So, right now we have a couple things going on. We're vertically integrated. So we have a company, 4M Capital and 4M REI, two companies doing the same thing. We also have a construction company that we built about 3 years ago, and then also a property management company where we do third-party management now. That's something that just came up during COVID. We've developed that. So that's humming along now. And we have about 1,000 units under third party without even putting it out there yet. So
Nice.
Yeah,
Very
there's
nice.
a need for it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. And so you had a very interesting, kind of break into multifamily. Maybe we can start, there, because in any profession, any career, any industry, there is a, very disproportionate number of, very high level, successful, female versus male, kind of, just individuals. And you are truly one of the outliers in multifamily. Female, male, we're not even talking about it. It's just like, yeah, based on your experience, you are up there. And I know you've had to have some extra challenges or obstacles. And, that's my wife always kind of, makes me think about these things as she's talking to me, how hard it was for her to break into tech world. But so tell us about your start. Tell us how you got into it. And we'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so one of the things that's good is I didn't know that it was supposed to be hard for females to get into this. So nobody told me, so I guess I wasn't even aware of it till people started asking me questions like that. I actually do take it as an advantage because, one of my girlfriends, she makes like the guys in suits. She's like, "Oh, they all look alike. They're all in suits, da da da." She's like, "We show up, we're a little different." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a good point." But, I always like to have fun. And compete, whether it's male, female. I love the business. I love working with the people that I work with. And there aren't very many females that are GPs. A lot of times they think I'm the property manager or something like that. But I get asked, one time a guy asked me if my dad needed to sign the paperwork, and
Wow.
it's like, it's okay. It's his perception. So it's nothing to take offense to. And then somebody else, actually, I've been asked several times, do we have to wait for your husband to get here? I'm like, thank you, but no, I'm good. I got this. I can sign now in the United States in 17, whatever. It's like, I'm allowed to do that, believe it or not. So, but it's all good. Like, yeah, I don't never take that personally. It's just their perception. And I understand it's a little bit of an outlier thing, but I love it because I think we are remembered. A lot of times I'll show up with my daughter and we'll, walk properties, and people, like I said, we're just a little different. So I think we just stand out a little bit that way. So I think it's an advantage. And I know my stuff. I can run circles and compete with anybody, and I know what I'm doing. So I could stand alongside anybody and do this. So it's pretty cool. I do love it. And it's funny that you say your wife going into the tech field, because that's my background. Is I used to be a network engineer. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I don't think I heard this story, but keep going.
So my whole life, really, I've been in male dominated environments where I went to school for electrical. I could actually wire a house. I know how to do that. So I learned how to build a house from the ground up myself. Basically, as a teenager, I used to work for some contractors that would renovate houses. Before it was cool to have on, TV, we watched Flip This House and stuff, but there wasn't those things at the time. Somebody was flipping a house near my grandfather's, and I thought it was the most awesome thing. And they needed somebody to kind of help clean up the job site. They were getting in trouble with the city for leaving garbage around. So I would just go help. And I was just getting paid by the hour. I thought I was making $1 million, probably making $5 an hour or something. But I learned how to do a lot of the construction. So I think that's definitely one of the things that serves me well now, is knowing what prices we should be paying for certain things, and knowing how things are put together. And when somebody's being honest with you, or calling the contractors out that do know what they're doing or don't know. I mean, sometimes I tell the contractors, I'm like, dude, you're doing that wrong. Like, let me show you how to do it.
Yeah. It's a different perspective when you know what should be done, and when you're watching for that either mistake or the right way to do it. And you're like, you're correcting somebody, you're calling some BS out on what they may or may not be doing. And I'm sure what they're charging you as well. We had a good pre-conversation about this stuff. So that's awesome, Maureen.
Yeah. And I love it. I almost look at it as a secret weapon, because dealing with new contracters, they don't even think it's on their radar that I know what I'm talking about. So, I can tell, they'll sometimes, if I'll have a male business partner or somebody else there, and they'll be telling him everything. And his partner used to look at me and said, "Are they right?" I'm like, "No, they're not. Get them off the job." So I appreciate, like I said, it is like a secret weapon, because if people are being honest or not without them knowing. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's a tremendous background. And I spent like 13 years in IT and tech, and then my wife, is in there about 6 years, and she would always call that out. How come I make less than, and I'm doing more, I have more expertise, and I'm showing some of them how to do their roles and jobs. And I'm like, yep, just an extra hoop to go through. I like your mindset though on, when you said, I didn't know that it was going to be hard to break in or whatever. And I think this, that was a mindset that I had when I was younger, as well as a salesperson. People would ask me, am I doing well? If they had a new sales job, and in the beginning, when they were new on the job, I would say, yeah, you're doing okay. When this individual is like crushing it. And I would purposely push them away from the larger group of 30 or 40 people. And I'd say, yeah, you're doing okay. And they would say, how's everyone else doing? And I would go, hey, yeah, they're doing okay, but let me keep you in this direction. Just go to work. And they'd come back like a month or two later and realize they were like the number one or top 10 performer. And, they were like, man, you didn't tell me I was doing well. I didn't want to burst your bubble. So there's a lot to that mindset, right?
It's true. Yeah. Just knowing. And for me, I think a big driver is, People say, when is enough enough? How many units? What do you want to do? And for me, I've done such crazy things. Like, I don't know, take this the wrong way, but like for money, I used to load trucks at UPS. For 6 years I did that. I started when I was a senior in high school. I used to work third shift because they would pay for my college a little bit. So I wanted to get that. And it was higher pay than most other jobs out there. And man, I'll tell you, you're in good shape when you do that job.
That's how I remember your story. I think I remember UPS as the background, your initial background. Anyways.
Yeah, I knew from that job, the one thing that the job was hell. It was rough. You're loading boxes are coming at you as fast. You're sweating. You lean down, you sweat would go in your eyes. But I said, I know that no job I'll ever have in my future will suck this bad. So I hit my floor. Yeah.
We've all had our fun ones, right? Like the worst possible job. And anyways. Hey, so let's, I think would be a great kind of point. How in the world did you raise $75 million, and how in the world did you get to own, 3,000 unit multifamily apartment complex doors? How does that happen in 5.5 years?
Yeah. So, whatever I do, I like to be 100% into it too, whether it's loading boxes or whatever. Like, I'm all in when I get something in.
We couldn't tell by those numbers. we can't tell that, but go ahead. I interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's good. It's good. But I love this. I love this opportunity. I feel like it's almost a packaging of all my experiences, from doing the construction side. Like, for a little while, I was a realtor when my kids were small. I used to be a real estate agent, and I actually started working with a builder doing finish trim in like new houses just to make extra money. And so it's like, looking back now, it kind of makes me laugh that like all these weird little skills I had learned throughout the years, I rely on those. So these different journeys we go on throughout life, when we feel like we're so off track sometimes, but then later on that comes back to serve us, right? I say, wow, I'm really glad I ran into that situation. Or, we talked about some insurance jobs. I kind of got hosed way long ago with an insurance guy. And but what I learned from there makes me like just be so sick. Like, now we run insurance jobs, any kind of fire, we know exactly what to do, how to handle it. So that little lesson back then, served me well. So it was a gift, looking back on it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's these things that we run through in our lives, that we experience that don't always seem great at the time. They're really little learning lessons for us for the future. And I totally forgot your question.
You're good. We enjoy hearing this. So you're absolutely perfect on the conversation. It's really, how you got started. Let's say, take your first deal, for example. You are raising capital for the first time. You're finding a property for the first time. You're taking that down, and, you had no track record then. It's probably much easier to do all these things today. $75 million raised later, but like the first deal, maybe tell us about how that 5.5 years got started.
Yeah, sure. So that very first deal was a bit scary. I started buying smaller duplexes and, 3 families, 4 families with my husband and my kids. And we would fix them up ourselves and then run them, we'd lease them. And then so we'd sell some other ones and things like that. So that was what we did for probably about, 6 or 7 years. So I had the experience. So when I got the opportunity for that first 100+ unit property, I remember like sitting at the bottom of the hill. Now, I lived in Connecticut. It was in Atlanta. So it was my first time doing something remotely where I wasn't directly managing it as well. And I remember sitting at the bottom of the hill and saying, you know what, like if all this, like if nothing goes how I think it will, I know I can run this sucker with like me and my family. Like, I know we can take care of it. And that was my biggest fear, is taking other people's money into it. Because it's one thing, and I started with no money. I want to tell everybody that on that deal, I remember I had a partner then, and he had said, can you pay the video guy $750? Somebody came out and shot it for us. And I'm like, how am I supposed to tell this guy I don't have $750? Like, I felt like the biggest loser, and I really didn't have it. So our credit cards were maxed out. Like, I was in a rough shape, when you jump off that cliff to do this business.
Oh, yeah.
But it worked out. And we were able to close that deal. And as far as raising money, I left my job about a year before that. It took a good year to be able to close on my first large property. And, I was going to every network event there was. Just, I wanted to stay. It's not only to meet the people, but also it keeps your motivation up. It keeps you fed, right? It keeps you excited about the business, because we all get, I think, pulled away by shiny objects. I know I was actually a friend of mine owned a roofing company, and this big hailstorm came through. And so I spent like a couple months actually like meeting insurance adjusters on people's roofs, and I learned how to mark out like hailstorms. So here I am climbing up on people's roofs to sell roofs. But and so you get squirreled by easy things that, and then, I would just have to get back on track once in a while. I'm like, oh wait, my target is 100 plus complexes. Like, that's what I need to focus on. So for that first deal, it was it. And then as far as the money raise goes, it was tough. I remember that raise was $1.1 million, but man, it seemed like, and we have investors now that put more than that in just themselves on each deal. So
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that first one was so tough. And I'll give a little learning lesson to everybody. We had about 600,000 left to raise. I went to an event, met a gentleman, and he just left his job, and he had 600,000 basically to invest. And he's like, or maybe it was a little more, but he was going to put 600,000. So I called my partner at the time. I'm like, hey, I just finished the race. I got this. Like, this guy's going to go, we go through all the hoops and sequences, but this guy wanted in the deal. And about a week later, 2 weeks later, he calls me and he says, oh, Maureen, he's like, I talked to some other people, and I probably shouldn't put it all just in your deal, which was a smart thing to do. Again, this is all new to all of us, right? We didn't know. So, but he said, so he goes, I'm going to put 50K in.
Oh, like, there's a big difference. Man, so yeah.
Just a lesson. I tell this sometimes when I do speak to people is, when you haven't worked with an investor before, we never, even now, won't let them put a large amount in. So come in with 50, come in with 100, because if they bail on you, it's never disrupting the deal, right? You have lots of little chunks instead of significant people that can mess up your deal. So that's just, if everybody sticks to that, you'll be a lot better off when you're trying to raise money for your deals, because you won't get stuck in the 11th hour waiting for that big check. But anyway, we ended up raising that just fine. And so that deal lasted about, I think, 27 months we held that deal. And we ended up returning, not only doubling everybody's money plus some, but then we gave, I believe it was 22% in cash flow during the deal. So I just waited. And he's a good friend of mine now. He's actually, I think, been in every single deal I've had.
I've been in every single one of your deals too, if that was my first one. Oh, I love it.
But it's, I just waited for the day to return the check, because I gave him, so he invested 50. So he got like 111,000 or whatever through the deal. And I was just waiting for that moment when he was getting that check. And I said, hey, his name is Mike. He knows I tell him this story.
Okay,
so
yeah.
His name is Mike. I'm like, hey, Mike. I'm like, you should call that person to tell you not to put the 600,000. Like $1.4 million right now you'd be getting. So you should call him and
Thanks for the advice. I appreciate it.
But anyway, we laugh about it all the time. And I told him, I waited 2 years. I said, but it's okay. It's all good. But it's really through networking events and just talking to people and meeting, a friend of a friend. People will connect you, and you can't just go once and expect to raise the money, right? So you develop relationships, you show up, they see you 3 or 4 times. So even if you lack hard experience, number one, you align yourself with someone that has a clue. I did have a little bit of I shouldn't say a little bit, I had operations experience from what I did. So I think I was able to portray that I had the confidence, in if something was wrong with the deal, I could always catch it and fix it. So anyway, that was the first deal.
Yeah. So that deal kind of, 2.5 years, you crushed it. You did really well. You raised your first, you said $2 million or 1 million? I lost
1.1 million.
Okay. So $1.1 million bucks. And then the next 2 or 3 or 4 deals, kind of walk us through those. How many units was the first one? The one that you raised?
117 units.
Okay. And then your second one? How many
And that
units?
was 250 units. We closed on that one about 3 months after. I remember that was a $2.5 million
So
raise.
super quick. A
Yeah.
few months later, get rolling again, and then your third and fourth deal, maybe.
Yeah, the third one was a large one. That one was, well, it was 242 units, but it was a newer build. So that one was we bought that one for $16 million. That was like a first, like the other ones were kind of smaller. We
Yeah.
bought the first one for 3, the second one for 6.75, and then it was like 15 and a quarter. I think we paid for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 15 million. So that was a big raise.
What stretch of time was that? Those string of
That one,
deals.
so we closed on the 250 unit in September of 14 now while we're going back. And then the next one closed in May or June of 15. So maybe 8 months. Because when you get into a market, once you start closing, they know you're a closer. That's all brokers want. They want surety of close. So once you prove you can perform,
Mm-hmm.
the wall, everything just opens up, and all those were off market deals, every single one of them. Not one
Yeah.
was marketed.
Yep. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And for the new passive investors or new general partners that are listening, few things that Maureen touched on. So let's just make sure we rehash it. That networking piece is so important. You got to get in there, whether you're looking for a deal to invest in or whether you're trying to find a partner. Getting into that quote unquote hive mind, all the people that are interested, want to do it, trying to figure out how to get together and partner. And today with COVID, if you can't do that, there's a lot of virtual, there's a lot of online events. We do meetups, all kinds of things. So get out there. If you don't know how to do that, you're going to get Maureen's contact information and mine as well after the recording, and ask us like, where do I go to network today? And we can point you in the right direction. For the general partners that are listening, or the new general partners, really, the broker relationship, the opportunity to get your first deal. She had mentioned off-market property, and if you're converting or going from single family like myself to multifamily, don't think wholesaler off-market for maybe these or potential ones. She said brokers. So explain that a little bit, Maureen, what that means. Like you said, off-market, they were all there, but they were brokers. Kind of elaborate for those that just are trying to learn this stuff.
Yeah, so sometimes, they'll call them pocket listings, or, everybody knows what off market is. And there's pros and cons to off market deals. But it's just things that I hate when I'm, like actually today we have to put an LOI in on something. It's a huge deal, but they're expecting 15 offers. And so I'm like, why even bother? Because, when you're in a competitive bid with so many other people, I'm like, number one, like if you get it, you're like, why am I paying more than everybody else? What did I miss? Right? Let me look at that underwriting again. And then if you there's somebody like willing to pay stupid money for it or too much, right? I said there's always some idiot willing to pay too much, because you get enough people, somebody's going to be the outlier. So it's kind of a waste of time of even trying to meet that expectation, right? Or that high number, because if there is just one Yahoo in there that missed something or doesn't know what they're doing or has stupid money, they call dumb money, as they call it, you can't really compete with that. So the off market stuff is really, so we've gotten deals by things falling apart sometimes because we are easy to work with. And I was just telling somebody this story. We saw something that was wrong on a deal we closed recently, but it was with a new broker in a new market, and we were closing. And I said, look, I found something that's going to cost me about $200,000 to fix. And this is the conversation with the broker, and I said, we're going to eat it. I have enough capital. I have enough cushion there to take care of it. We're going to eat it. I just want you to know, because we don't want to be labeled as retraders, but I want you to realize that, this is an issue for anybody, and that I just want you to bring me another deal. And they're like, that's awesome. No problem. So, you kind of win the hearts of the brokers that way a little bit, because they just want an easy deal. They don't want to ruin their reputation. So you'll get deals like that. It could be something that we've also gotten deals that fell apart at the last minute. People didn't show up with the money or something happened. And so they'll call and say, hey, I got a really irate seller, but this is a good deal. And they'll call us. So you want that reputation to be easy to close. Some people go in and they think they got to beat up the broker, and, we know now what questions to ask and what not to ask. That's something you kind of got to learn along the way. But, if you're drilling down on, one particular unit that, there's a $25 difference between the lease amount and the collected amount, and you're drilling down, like, you're not an easy buyer to work with, and is that really going to make or break your deal if there's a couple of leases that are a little funky? It shouldn't.
Yeah.
So that's off market is something that hasn't been pitched to.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much for explaining.
Hello. You're listening to the 5Talents podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5Talents podcast. We really appreciate it.
So you mentioned something. I'm gonna dig in. The questions to ask a broker now, and maybe to ask and not to ask or whatever. But illuminate this a little bit. After your experience, you've got some better understanding. Engaging with the broker, talking to them pre. They're asking you if you're interested in a deal. Here's your whisper price and all that. What questions are you asking? Maybe the new broker in a new market, and you're breaking into that for the first time.
Yeah, you just want them to, one of the tips I do give people, and this has worked for me, is I never go into a new market and just start calling brokers. So what I'll do is I will, if there's one market that they're familiar with you in, whether it's a Mercadia or Cushman, Wakefield, ARA, whoever you're dealing with, call and ask for the intro. Like, say, hey, do you have a sister company in wherever you want to go? Tampa, San Antonio, like wherever it is, just say, hey, can you put me in contact? Because that's like a warm handoff, so much better than just saying, hey, I'm Maureen, I bought some stuff in Atlanta. Like, they're like, okay. But if it's one of their own team members, so that's helped me kind of come into the markets. And and then in the beginning too, for people just kind of breaking into this, I remember like they'd ask me too many questions, I just hang up. It was like, the attitude adjustment button, and then you're like, wow, what did he ask me? And then you can always call back and be like, oh, we got disconnected. But in IT, we used to call it the attitude adjustment button.
You hang up and you're like, okay, you're ready to call now. I love it. Oh, I'm sorry, we got disconnected. Yeah, I can't say I've ever done that before.
Don't be scared to call, because some people are so scared to call. But if they start drilling, you just hang up. It's fine, So in IT, we used to call it the attitude adjustment button. And it sounds terrible. I'm not a mean person, but man, you get somebody to get a new one. And I'm just like, was a manager, so they would start doing that to my team, and I'd be like, okay, hit the button, and then give it a minute, and we call them back, and if they start tearing us again, we hit the button again. I'm like, all these connections on these phones, they're terrible, but.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it.
Don't be afraid. Some people are just held back so much by fear, but there's always that button. Don't freak yourself out. So, in the beginning, talking to brokers, they're like, what I used to joke around and say, oh, we want to, what do we say? A B property in an A area, and and then I'd always follow up and laugh and go, and I know I'm the only person that called you this month, right? We're looking for such a unique thing. And they always laugh. And so when you're getting asked for proof of funds, when you're getting asked for, things like that, you're saying something, you're giving some sign that you don't know what you're talking about. So you might want to run by somebody that is experienced and say, hey, this is what I'm saying. Like, can you help me tweak that language a little bit? So just a little tip out there for you guys.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you. So raising capital, right? you've done multiple deals. They came in quick, right? I'm kind of thinking about your journey, right? First deal, second deal, third deal is much bigger raise, and then your fourth, fifth, and ongoing, right? 3,000 units, $75 million. How do you like prepare yourself mentally to even start accepting that much cash from investors? And I know this is, I don't know if you thought about it in the beginning, I don't know what your thoughts are today, but there's like $75 million of people just trusting you with their money. And how do you even manage this in your mind, and what occurs there?
Well, I joke around. I deal with a lot of doctor groups. So I always joke around, like, if I ever get ill, like, I will have a lot of specialists that are very concerned with my health.
I better have some of you that are going to help me too.
Yeah, for health as well, because they want to make sure you stay healthy. And I get calls. They're like, Maureen, are you exercising
okay?
times a
You're
week?
doing all right?
Yeah, like, I'm good. Thank you.
Watching your cholesterol levels and that.
Exactly. But no, all joking aside, in the beginning, that's one of the reasons I didn't do the 100 plus until I left my job, right? Because I didn't want to be responsible for other people's money like that. And I'm not saying you have to do it, because with the right partnerships and the right kind of things put in place, you can still react quickly. But at the time, I didn't know what I know now. And so I never wanted to take other people's money like that and be responsible for it and not be able to react immediately. Like, say, oh, yeah, there's a problem down there in Atlanta, but I'm going to put in for a day off on next Tuesday and go down and I'll check it out. Like, so that wasn't even an option to me. So
Yeah.
I do take the weight of having those people and their funds, because, I've got like one of my guys who's an ambulance driver for like 40 years. And like, I have his money, and it gets to a point where, we perform, knock on wood, we've never missed a friggin' projection or been late on a distribution. Now we've been doing it for over 6 years now. But our team is just on it. Like, that's the most important thing, right? Is their money. And I think when you're looking for partnerships too, you have to make sure that your partners feel the same way you do, because there's a lot of people out there, no offense, and there's some really awesome people out there too, but some people are they could give a crap about the investors. And I never want to work with people like that. I've had people tell me in the beginning, before I settled on the partners that I ended up working with, one person told me, Maureen, just get the money in. And they say their bank account is a little light, and if you get the money in, we get an acquisition fee. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Dang
like
it.
this?
Yeah.
And so I was very grateful when people give those hints in the beginning, because what and I exited that deal. I backed out of that deal. I'm like, there's no way I'm putting a freaking dime of, my investors' money in there. So, but to answer your question now, in the beginning, I always thought that I was going to do this for a year or two, right? Put a period at the end of the sentences on some deals, and then work with equity groups. Like, you hear hedge fund guys show up to the meetings or all this, and you're like, well, like, this is the answer. They cut a check. Once I got to that level, I started talking to these guys, and no offense to these guys, I mean, they're really just syndicators of money as well, that come in and, want to write a check and want an operator to work for them. So it's like having another job. They want to, it's not all about the acquisitions, but they're taking the fees, they're taking the acquisition fees, they're taking the, all the meat basically in the deal, and then they're trickling it to you. So once I got to the point to being able to work with those guys, I realized I didn't want to. So those 75 million, that's no equity groups or anything like that. That's just relationships that I have and I've developed.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to put that out there for other people that think that that's the big answer, but be very careful of those guys. Again, I'm from Connecticut. We deal in New York, and some are great. So it's not everybody, but there's a few out there that, there's ways that they can convert those notes and take your equity in the deal, like these mezzanine finance deals. Like, just, you have to be so careful in that world. And so just to keep myself safe, my investors safe, I try to always control that. And I do, like I said, again, knock on wood, we've never been late or fell short, or even on our reports, we're on time with that. So it's that kind of thing. You have to be exact with that, because you're dealing with people's lives, their future, right? These are might be their kids' school money in the future, or it's things you don't want to mess with. So anyway, that's why I think I've had success at it, because I take that with great weight. Like that's what will keep me up at night. That's what keeps me targeted. It's not so much my money. Like I can take risks with my money. That's one thing, but with investors' money, you really can't. And you have to make sure just everything is on point. You have to be able to check everything you could check. I spend a ton of money on education, and I don't do any coaching or sell any courses. So this is just my raw thing, but you have to go out and educate yourself on, it's like, you're always afraid you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. Right. So, getting lined up with people with experience or finding that education, and you don't have to pay for it. Even if it's free, just reading everything you can is so important, because you're dealing with somebody else's money. So,
yeah. I love all those mindsets too. I'm big on education. I sign up for a ton of programs and classes and coursework. And pre-COVID, it was travel. Every time I could get out there to hear more. So I'm completely aligned. And then the mindset of being, how I sum it up to what you said, is exactly the word, a financial steward. And it's kind of how I think about things, because you can be a fiduciary, right? In that technical term, that fiduciary role is like, you have to put the customer's interest or your investor's interest first, right? Whereas somebody is like not a fiduciary. Are you in a fiduciary role? Is a good question. If anybody's, questioning their financial advisor and whether they're selling their own products from their own firm or acting as a fiduciary and have that fiduciary responsibility, ask the question so that they have to tell you, yeah, I am serving as a fiduciary, meaning your interests are first. But if they say, no, I kind of aim to serve like that, but I'm not a fiduciary, then, okay, there's no limit for them to push a product that makes them more commission than not as a salesperson, right? But I like the financial steward, that kind of, in Maureen's kind of mindset is how I put it, is like, you're trying to do the best possible thing beyond fiduciary experience. Like, you've got to make sure that money is safe, and you're trying to help them with their family and their dreams, goals, and pursuits. We all have them, and so do Maureen's investors in the deal. So I love that. I love it.
Yeah. And I mean, not only is it the right thing to do, but, you blow up a deal or two and you're done. Like, your career's done. And that's why you have to be because I could have the best intentions, but I get hooked up with a ill-minded partner or somebody that doesn't think like me, and maybe they control the deal. Like, I want to put that out there too, because I'd hate to have somebody lose their, opportunity in this business and not be able to reach their full potential just because they got hooked up with somebody that maybe wasn't as concerned with the investors. And that it happens. So really know your partners, know every deal your partners are involved with, not just the ones they're showing you. Ask them, what is literally every deal you have any sliver of ownership in, LP, GP? I want to know. And that's why we work with few people. There's not a lot of people that I'll just partner up with, and I need to control the deals. For that reason alone, it's just to keep investors safe, and my own, track record. I have to make sure that it's on point, so I have to be able to control it. But I'm always I'm always willing to answer questions, and I want everybody to do good. So.
Yeah, well, you're crushing it, and you're taking an amazing approach. So, before we wrap up, I have one or two more questions, but where can our network or individuals that are listening or watching the show right now, where do they reach out to you? How do I get closer to your world?
Sure. So our website is www.4mrei.com. That's the number 4, and then M like Maureen, rei.com. And our property management company is vicinialiving.com. So it's VICINIA living.com. And I'll give you my email address. We had a little chat before this about hiring an assistant, so she's going to be onboarded today, so we'll put her to the test. But my email address is mmiles, so it's just like the measurement, mmiles@4mrei.com. So just reach out, and if you put Abel Show or 4TCRE, that'll kind of get my attention. And I'm always happy to point or connect people when I can, or, help out. I said sometimes it's a little hard catching me if I'm traveling, but we're trying to get better
Cool.
at that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I do have, kind of the last few minutes here. Is there anything that we didn't touch on today that you were really, want to share with our network, our audience? Anything we didn't, whether it's a mindset, a nugget, questions, really whatever.
Let's see. That's a good question. Well, I mean, one thing is we are offering third-party management services. So I'll plug myself for just a second.
Please do.
During COVID here, we took that opportunity to really drill down on operations, and we ended up making some serious changes. Everything was going okay, but it wasn't as good. I saw there was some opportunity that we were leaving behind, and we weren't as on point as we could be. So I think every day, whether it's personally or business, there's always ways to improve it, right? So I think we just keep working towards getting better each day. That's all we can do as humans, and whatever it is. So I ended up closing down my property management company, but JVing with a group that's owned over 10,000 units. They were being disassembled because the owner had sold their portfolio. So it's about 30 people. So right now I'm so excited about the future because we now have those corporate levels in place where when you're trying to manage, 2,000, 2,500 units, it's hard to pay for everybody you need, right? So the people on the top levels, they wear lots of hats. Now we're able to, we have the marketing person, we have the media, we brought accounting in-house. So we really have a corporate structure. And I said, we're coming. People will hear of Vicinity Living because we're coming. But it's great with those structures because I'm able to have people concentrate on the things that, it's like, oh, I have to get to that. I have to get to that. I have to get to that. And it's hard to concentrate on so many things at once. And, you start dealing with just the bigger fires, and for a little while I was just getting wicked busy and in the weeds. So this has allowed me to kind of come back out and take a breath and do shows like with you, Abel.
Nice.
But anyway, reach out to us if you have any questions on that, and we'll help you look into markets and things like that too.
What markets are you going to serve?
We're in Georgia, Indiana, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama right now. Without even trying, we have 1,000 units under management by third party. Also the Carolinas. So we're just looking to grow. And those are all markets that we're already familiar with the team. So
cool. And your insight and expertise will kind of obviously blend into this property management company pretty well, huh?
Oh yeah. And they're impressive. They have 20, some of them have over 20 years experience, but all of them at least 10 or 15 years. And they're such a close knit group. So I was really impressed. And like I said, I was so impressed with them that I shut down the other company that we were just doing in-house. And I said, okay, let's grow this and we'll do third party to be able to keep this team together and grow it. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's big news, and we're excited to share it. I had an amazing time today, so thank you, Maureen.
Oh, thank you. It was so great meeting up with you again, Abel. I know we've run into each other at different networking events, and just for your listeners that want to do this or want to grow, is just be careful of your own mindset, because I think we limit ourselves way more than anybody else limits us. And so you just have to think of those boundaryless edges, right? So it's not like, oh, I can do 1,000 units, I can raise X amount. Like you just do the right thing. You try to help out other people. That's another thing, is not keeping score. I think that's huge. I'll help you out, and I'm not going to sit by my phone waiting for Abel to pay me back. Like it's not how I think. It's like, I'm happy to help. Things will come back to you. I do believe in energy that way and stuff, not to get too foo-foo about it, but it's a big thing. It really is. And just help each other, be kind to one another. And, just because I help you and you get a deal, it's not going to hurt me. Like, there's enough real estate for everybody. So, I think all together we can help watch each other's backs, and I'll move forward, this is a great business. The people I meet that are successful at it are outstanding people. I think when people are kind of have bad ideas, or they're just, not great people, they can only get so far. So the farther you get in this, you'll meet more and more outstanding people, and it opens other opportunities too as you meet those great people. So anyway, I love this business.
All right. No, we can't. It doesn't come across at all. It's all over your face, and it's great. It's a good mindset and a good position to be in. So all the reasons that you mentioned are all the reasons that we are doing what we're doing today. So thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure having you. Hopefully we get to have you back on the show at a later point. You can talk a little bit more about your property management lessons and kind of continue an expansion, et cetera, and had a great show. So let me state, well, my name's Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5Talents podcast, if you didn't know. And then our website, if you ever want to contact us, we're at 5tcre.com, and look forward to having you for the future episodes. Thank you very much, Maureen. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Abel. Take care.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who follow their dreams and achieve massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5Talents podcast.